Yeah.
Yep.
Awesome. Can you hear me perfectly, right?
Yep.
Okay, cool. Should we get started?
Sure.
Yeah, sure.
Okay. So first, I'm just going to introduce myself. My name is Ken. I am an engineering partner at Blockstack. I'm based in Toronto, but Blockstack itself is a very decentralized organization, and we have members from all over the world. So I work on many of the engineering projects at Blockstack, like the Blockstack JS library, the Blockstack browser, and the iOS SDK. So today, in this presentation, we're going to cover a few things. First, what is Blockstack, and why you should build apps on Blockstack, and why people should use Blockstack. And then I'm going to go into how Blockstack apps are different from, say, a regular React.js app. And then we're going to go through some quick coding examples. Any questions before we get started?
No? Not before.
No? Cool. Has anyone here heard of Blockstack before?
Nope.
No? Okay. You guys all heard of the blockchain, right?
Yep.
Okay. So we'll start from the beginning. So Blockstack is a platform for decentralized apps that's built on the blockchain. And how we got to where Blockstack is here today is, so it's starting from the beginning of the internet. So the original vision of the web was a global decentralized communication platform where any individual can communicate with another individual through this network without some sort of central party controlling that. What we actually have today is that a few companies are sort of the gatekeepers to the internet. The ones that come to mind are companies like Google, Facebook, Amazon. If you think about the last time you used the internet, did you have to use a product from one of these companies, right? When you use your email, is it Gmail, your social networks, all kinds of stuff. So in order to send each other photos through these kind of apps, we sort of created the largest collection of personal information in history. And companies like Facebook, Google, they keep all that data and they use it for profit. So the internet didn't really turn out as what we hoped in the beginning. Time has shown that you cannot trust these companies to safeguard your data. They sell your data to advertisers, they delete them because they don't have good security, they're vulnerable to all kinds of hacks, cracking passwords, and they lock you into their platform so that you're forced to continue using their software. And meanwhile, they have all the profits and power. So these apps violate people's digital rights. And we believe at Blockstack that everyone has the right to freedom of speech, the right to privacy, freedom of assembly, and digital property rights. So famously, Google's slogan at one point was, "Don't be evil." But we at Blockstack believe that no company should be powerful, so powerful that they can decide whether or not they want to be evil. So we want to build decentralized apps that such centralized parties in order to protect people's digital rights. And how do we go about doing that? How do we decentralize? And why hasn't anyone done this before if this is such a big problem, right? And the problem is that there is no good way to get two strangers on the internet to agree on something or trust each other without some sort of central entity like Google, right? And recently, in the last few years, the blockchain came to being. For those not familiar with blockchains, it's the technology that powers cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin, Ethereum, and it is essentially a public and distributed digital ledger. A key feature of blockchains is that it's a mechanism to establish consensus between different parties without a central entity. And blockchain is what Blockstack uses to sort of bootstrap trust in a network, right? Imagine you're using a messaging app on the internet. How do you know that the person that you're talking to is actually who they say they are, right? So if you use something like Facebook Messenger, Facebook knows that this person is exactly who they are, and you trust Facebook to let you know that this person is who they say they are. But in a decentralized world, without a central party like Facebook, you need something that lets you know that this person has this identity and they are truthful and honest about who they are. So in the Blockstack ecosystem, there are really a few layers in the stack that allows you to build decentralized apps. And that first layer is the Blockstack name system, which does what I just talked about with the trust situation when you're talking to someone on the internet. So the Blockstack naming system is a identity and auth layer. What happens is when you register a name, instead of a central database that keeps track of everyone that has registered, you register your name on the blockchain. And the way you control that is you have a private key that is sort of like your password that nobody else has access to. And that private key will let you sort of certify that you are this person. And if you have that private key, you have complete ownership and control over your ID. And nobody else, including Blockstack, can change that. And that's the beauty of the blockchain. So you don't need a third party to establish trust. And from that naming system layer, we build on top a decentralized storage layer. So instead of your app that you build having to provide storage, users bring their own cloud storage. And how this is structured is that if you register a name, a Blockstack name, that name on the blockchain is pointing to a location where your data is stored. And users can bring all kinds of storage mediums to these apps. So you could use your Dropbox to store your app files, or you could sign up for an account on Amazon and use the Amazon Web Services to provide cloud storage for your app. And everything is encrypted client side. So before the data leaves your computer, it's encrypted. And you can encrypt the data only for yourself or someone you trust that you want to send this data to. And the creator of the app never actually has access to this data. And then the other layer of Blockstack is the Blockstack browser. And this is where the users can manage their identity and authentication and storage. So when the user signs into your app with Blockstack, it opens to the Blockstack browser where they have their ID stored, and they can give permission for this app to use your storage. This is similar to logging into apps with Facebook or Google, except you don't actually need a third party. All that's needed is the user having installed the Blockstack browser. And also in this browser you could register names, send cryptocurrency from that, from a wallet related to that name, and you can change where you store your data.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Where exactly are the messengers? Where exactly are the messengers in the whole process progress? You know, like how are they being sent?
Sorry, it's a little bit hard to hear. Could you speak louder?
Oh sure. So how are the messages being sent in the first place on the blockchain? Like, is it like a smart contract, or?
So there's no smart contract. Right now, Blockstack is built on top of the Bitcoin blockchain.
Oh.
So if you send any kind of Bitcoin transaction, you can include small bits of data with that transaction.
Alright.
And what Blockstack does is it uses that space to encode a sort of attestation that this person owns this username, right?
Yeah, sure.
And everyone else can read the Bitcoin blockchain and verify that this person has registered this name.
So basically the messages are public, but no one knows except for the people who have the public key who the messages belong to.
Yes.
Okay.
So Blockstack has a virtual layer on top of the Bitcoin blockchain called the Atlas system, and Atlas reads through the Bitcoin blockchain and records all these Blockstack related transactions and creates a database on each person's computer about who owns what name. But you don't have to run a Blockstack kernel with Atlas in order to do that. Most Blockstack users will communicate with a Atlas node that someone else is running.
Okay, and if it's built on top of Bitcoin, how come that it is free? Or is it not free? Or is it just like such an insignificant amount of money?
Right, that's a good question. So when you register a Blockstack name, there are actually two different types of names that you can register. The first kind is a normal, say, username.id name. We call those full domain names, and that requires you to send a transaction on the Bitcoin blockchain and pay the transaction fee.
Mm-hmm.
But there's a second type of Blockstack name called subdomains. So anyone that has already registered a username.id username can provide this service to other people by registering subdomains like my name dot can.id, right?
Yeah.
And the person who registered can.id will wait for hundreds of these subdomain registrations to come to him, and then he will send out one single Bitcoin transaction to register all those other names.
Okay.
And these subdomains have the same properties as just a straight up regular full domain name like can.id. You still maintain full control and ownership, and not even the person that owns can.id can change that.
Sure. So in real life, these people who actually have to pay would be the people who run the app and maybe get the money from advertising or.
So people can choose to run subdomain registrars. So these are the people that register names for other people. And Blockstack right now provides a free service to register .id.blockstack names. And a few others also have this service. But if you just just download the Blockstack browser and you register a name. That username is a .id.blockstack name, and it's completely free, and it's registered instantly.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. So to continue, in order to build a Blockstack app, you want to use the Blockstack.js library, which is the JavaScript library for identity, auth, and storage. From this library, you can create authentication requests through the Blockstack auth layer. And then you can also use Gaia, which is the decentralized storage system in Blockstack. And there are also equivalent iOS and Android SDKs that are available. So this is like an overview of the entire stack. When you build an app, you're sitting on top of all these layers that eventually are bootstrapped off of the Bitcoin blockchain. So how are Blockstack apps different? So first, Blockstack apps are fully client-side. You don't need to build your own API or database in order to store user data. And apps authenticate through the user's Blockstack browser and read and write data directly to the user's chosen storage provider. And as a developer, why should you use Blockstack? Firstly, you save yourself the trouble of building the server-side components so you can get started really quickly. You don't need to worry about storage and keeping user data safe because that's all taken care of by the library. And you can use Blockstack with any other JavaScript front-end library like React or Angular or just plain vanilla JavaScript. So let's go through like a quick example of how to build a Blockstack app. So you import Blockstack layers like any other library. And you can also use the Blockstack app generator to create boilerplate code. And I'll give you a link to that later on. So it's very simple, npm install Blockstack. I'm sure you're all familiar with that. And in your code, you can import Blockstack from the Blockstack module. In order to use the auth layer, you call this redirect to sign-in function. So what that does is it initiates an auth request, which goes and forwards the user to the Blockstack browser that they have installed. And they'll see a screen like this. And this tells the user that this app, whatever it's called, wants to read some basic info, or if it wants to publish some sort of data, and then lets them choose what ID they want to use to authenticate with this app. And this ID is what they've registered. So in this case, this person downloaded the Blockstack browser and registered a free Blockstack ID, which is meepers.id.blockstack. So after this auth request, if the user approves, they get redirected back to your app with the authentication data, and your app can verify that this user is who they say they are. And you receive some basic profile data that you can use to populate your app, things like username, email, profile pictures, and whether or not they have verified that they own this ID on another social network, which the Blockstack browser lets you do. And once you have done that, you can use the storage layer, which is also very simple. When you want to save a file to the user's decentralized storage, all you have to do is call put file, and you put the name of the file and the content, which can be just plain JSON or a binary file like an image. And once you do that, it'll store to whatever storage medium the user has selected, which could be Dropbox or Amazon or the default storage provided by Blockstack. And you could read this data back very easily by using the get file function, and just supply the file name. And in the case where you want to read a file from somebody else, all you need to do is put their username in the options key that follow the file name. And this is a link to a very simple Blockstack, hello Blockstack tutorial. And if you want to build a Blockstack app, please go here and take a look. And here are some other links that you might be interested in. Documentation is at blockstack.org. Are there any questions?
Yeah, I have a question. What happens if a user is trying to open your app but they don't have this browser?
Right. So if they don't have the browser installed and when you click sign in with Blockstack on your app, it takes them to browser.blockstack.org, which is a website that is actually a web-hosted version of the Blockstack browser, and there they could instantly register a Blockstack ID for free. And once they do that, they get redirected back to your app with their authentication data.
How many Blockstack apps are out at the moment, roughly? Is it a lot or
Right,
just
so
starting?
there are actually a lot of Blockstack apps out right now. If you want to take a look, you can go to app.co, app.co/Blockstack. App.co is a central repository of all dApps, including Blockstack apps. And there you can see a list of Blockstack apps that are currently out. And if you're interested in building Blockstack apps, there is a program right now called App Mining. So if you build a Blockstack app and you submit it to app.co, it goes through a voting process and scoring process. And if your app is popular, you'll get rewarded in cash. So in December this year, Blockstack is rewarding $100,000 US dollars to the popular apps. And the way it works is that we have app reviewers like Product Hunt and Democracy Earth, and they rank these apps based on a number of criteria. And the top app will receive 20% of the $100,000 prize pool, and then the second app will receive the 20% of the remaining, and it keeps going like that. So, and we started this program last month, and we're planning to increase the amount that we're rewarding apps.
So Blockstack is right now mainly used for messengers, or what do people build?
Right, so one of the more popular apps right now is Graphite Docs, which is a decentralized version of Google Docs. I'm sure you guys have used Google Docs, right? So you can use a word processor, Excel spreadsheet, and all that is built on a decentralized medium. So users retain and control access to their files instead of something like Google Apps, Google Docs, where Google has access to all the documents.
Yeah.
And this is the case in one instance where a journalist was writing a pretty controversial article on Google Docs, and it was still private. He hasn't published it, but Google was able to go in there and read this document, and apparently they decided it was too controversial, and they deleted this document without even telling them. So that's not going to happen if you use something like Graphite Docs, because the creator of Graphite Docs doesn't have access to your data. And then another example of a popular Blockstack app right now is Stealthy. And Stealthy is a decentralized messenger app built on Blockstack. And it does exactly that. You get to message people, and everything is, all your chat messages are encrypted, and no third party will ever get to see that data.
So what's the overall aim of Blockstack? Just to take over other, say for example like social media companies and stuff? Just to like
So
be the
we
main...
think that,
Sorry, go on.
yeah, so we think there's more to that than just social media.
Sure.
There are all kinds of uses for decentralized apps, and you can replace, all the different kinds of apps that you use today with a decentralized version, where you're not susceptible to companies selling your data or leaking your data, or government spying on you. So, and I think our purpose really is to give people back those digital rights that we mentioned in the beginning, which is freedom of speech, freedom from censorship, and digital property rights.
Do you have any supply chains right now working with Blockstack or made with Blockstack?
So, sorry, what was the question?
If you have any supply chain applications, built with Blockstack?
No.
No?
No, not currently. Not that I'm aware of. There has been a lot of new apps recently, and I haven't been keeping track, so there might be,
Sure.
but I personally don't know about them.
Okay.
Do you know roughly how many people are actually using Blockstack applications at the moment?
So we can tell from the number of Blockstack names that have been registered on the Bitcoin blockchain, and that number is, I think, around 70,000.
Okay.
But because of the more private nature of Blockstack,
Yeah.
we don't have more information other than that.
And you're growing rapidly at the moment? Or
Yes.
yeah.
Cool. Any other questions?
How long has Blockstack been operating?
So Blockstack originally started as a project called Lending, and it was basically just the naming layer, and that company started in 2013.
Okay. Yeah, I like the sound of it all.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'd say I agree with what's happening.
Sorry, I couldn't really hear what you said.
Oh, just saying I like the sound of it all. I agree with what you guys are doing.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, if you guys are interested, you can come to the forum or chat with us on Slack. If you're ever interested in building a Blockstack app, it's actually very easy if you look at the tutorials.
Sure.
Pretty cool.
Cool.
So Blockstack is taking care of all the IDs? Blockstack?
Yeah.
So the users will never have access to their keys?
So when you sign up for a Blockstack ID, it sends you your private key, and Blockstack itself never actually sees that. Everything is done client side. So you have full control and ownership of your ID. Blockstack will never even see your key or have access to anything. And Blockstack is a fully open source project. Yeah.
Yeah, sure. Okay. So we sign up, we get a private key as a developer, and then people register through our app on the Blockstack browser where you configure another ID, which then will be like the subdomain of our ID.
So right now, if you use the Blockstack browser, you're registering a free username.id.blockstack,
Yeah.
like this one here. So this username is provided for free by Blockstack, but in the future, anyone can provide this registration server.
Mm-hmm.
Apps themselves don't have to provide this service right now, but it is an option.
But the developer, yeah, okay.
Yeah, so is there anything else that we're gonna know from me? Or we're done?
Yeah, yes, yeah.
Yeah. Thank you.
Alright, thanks.
Thank you.
Alright, thank you guys.